I should say, calling you and coming to you from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. It's about 29 after 9. So we're going to get started here in just another minute or two. So hang in tight, be silent for just another minute, and then we'll get started. Thanks a lot for coming on here tonight. Well, alrighty then, and hello again. Thank you so much, folks, for getting online here with us tonight. I am really excited to be with you guys tonight. Week 2, or part 2, week 2, I guess, if you want to look at it that way as well, of our fundamentals training series, this 4-part series where we run through the Freedom Plan over a 4-week period of time and just take it a chunk at a time in an effort to stick with the fundamentals of the business in an effort to make sure that we're staying on the path that keeps us true to what our business is really all about and keep it simple so that way we can be successful in our business. Guys, I am really honored tonight, and I'll introduce our guest here in just a minute, that we've got, Steve Fisher with us. I wanted to just start tonight real quick and just read a couple things to you for a moment. So bear with me here. I wanted to just share a couple of thoughts with you. The first one here that I'm going to go ahead and read says, "It's important to surround yourself with voices that inspire you, build you up, and believe in you. Voices that cheer you on. You have to fill your mind and life with positive things and positive people." I'll read another one to you. "Ultimately, by being focused on the success of others, this leads to a life of significance." One more. "True success starts with the understanding and belief that you were created to succeed, not only financially, but also in every other area of your life." Those 3 quotes were read to you from Steve Fisher's book, Residual Millionaire. And guys, I couldn't be more thrilled to have with me tonight number 2 money earner in Stream, a presidential director, and a person that I've looked up to since I got started in this business a few years ago. It's an honor, Steve, to have you on the line here tonight. Can you hear me okay?
Hey, I can hear you great, John. I'm excited to be on with you tonight as well, and coming to you from my home in Texas, and so I'm looking forward to this. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Awesome, awesome, and thanks again, Steve. I probably could guess that probably most everybody that's joining us here tonight from all over the United States has heard of you, knows of you, has read about you, has probably seen 1 or 2 of the videos that you're in, and a lot of the outstanding training that you guys are working on. Probably also there might be a couple of new people that may not know your story a little bit. So if you want to take just maybe a minute or 2 to just kind of lay out your background a little bit and where you're coming from and what you've done, that'd be great, Steve.
Yeah, absolutely, John. And prior to Stream, I was with American Airlines for 17 years. I was a senior analyst of airport operations for American system-wide, so my plate was full. I was traveling a lot. I was one of those guys that was too busy to do anything else, and I wasn't even looking for anything else. And I actually got a phone call one day from somebody I had a lot of respect for. He was a vice president for a major international corporation, and he owned several franchises, and he was one of those guys that always made money, and my wife and I knew that about him. And he called me one day out of the blue and said, Steve, I found a way we can get paid residual income on electricity. When people pay their electric bill, we can get paid. And no one had ever said that to me before. And coming from this guy, I was intrigued, and I knew if he was involved, there was money to be made. I knew the company would be credible, and I knew it was worth my time to listen. And I've always been thankful that he was the one that called me, because I often wonder, what if someone else would have called me and I wouldn't have, had the same respect for him or whatever, and what if I wouldn't have listened, It's a scary thought, but I was always thankful that it was Mr. Donnie Anderson that called me, and many may know who Donnie is. He's our number 7 money earner in the company, and so he shared this information with me, and I heard about it in November of 2004, and I knew the company was going to launch in January of 2005. But what I didn't know was that I was going to get laid off from my 17-year career the Wednesday before Christmas of 2004. So right before we launched this company, I got laid off from American. My wife was a stay-at-home mom. We had 3 girls at home, a house, 2 cars. It was a scary time around my house, and obviously, this had to work for me, and I chose, I really believed in the founders of this company and the opportunity that we had, and I felt like this was a chance for me to really change my life. I mean, I was at a point in my life where I was looking for a change, and I was ready for a change, and instead of going and getting a job, I jumped into this and jumped in full time and just went to work, and so I tell you that story tonight so you'll know how I started my business, and we had to make it happen. And so a lot of the stuff we're going to go over tonight is exactly what we did.
It's remarkable. I think, Steve, that there are times, when we encounter these types of struggles or challenges in our life, and they come, they never come planned or expected or wanted. Being laid off and having your back really kind of against the wall probably does one heck of a job on saying, oh my gosh, I've got to make something happen here. And I'm guessing that obviously played or factored in heavily to you and your determination to succeed with Stream as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It kind of makes you start looking at things in life and figuring out what's necessary and what's not. When you're backed into a corner like that and you've got to really make something happen, certain things become important, and other things become not important all of a sudden, right? And so we had an extreme focus, and I think one of the biggest things for me, John, as I look back on that time, I remember when that happened to me like it was yesterday, and I remember resolving in my mind, I just said, that will never happen to me again. And it was a very strong resolution to go out and change my life and not allow myself to be put in that position again. And I think that also had a big play and a big part in my success, where I finally took a stand and said, I'm gonna put myself in a position where that won't ever happen to me again.
Absolutely, Steve. That's amazing. And what doesn't kill you can make you stronger. And you have these points, I think, that you come to in your life, and you're faced with sort of that kind of decision. And well, I can tell you right now, I am sure glad that you decided to do what you did, because there have been countless, really thousands of people that have been benefited from your decision to move forward and do what you did, and I'm one of them for sure. So that's amazing stuff. Well, tonight we're focusing on really the 5 elements, or the 5 commitments of a stream leader. And I want to dive into this with people here, Steve, and I want you to be able to maybe just share with people, your thoughts on these different topics here. And now we've got them listed here on the slides. Following the system, taking immediate action, thinking long term, getting involved, and then having realistic expectations. We'll just start right in, with number 1 here and go through these, I guess, systematically with folks. When we talk about following the system, Steve, can you just kind of break that down for folks and let them know what we're talking about here?
Yeah, John, I think it's always important that you're pointing to a third-party system, tools that really build the business for you, rather than you being the main attraction, so to say. And the reason for this is because it allows you to have duplication on your team. And so, Stream's got a system in place with the videos that we have online that you can point people to. We have webinars that you can point people to. We have public events that you can point people to. And these are all part of the system that when an associate comes in, you got to remember that however you show the business to an associate is how they believe that the business has to be done. And so you got to really ask yourself the question when you're showing the plan to somebody. You have to ask yourself the question: Can the person that I'm showing this to, can they do what I'm getting ready to do? And that's a very important question, because you always want the answer to that to be yes, so that you have a duplicatable system that your new associate can actually start doing immediately. And so that's why it's so important that you allow the tools to do the work for you. And I encourage my associates, they get their prospect in front of a tool, and then get me or somebody else on the team, or even somebody on somebody else's team, get a third-party person on the phone with them, and help close that person. And normally what I do when I'm talking to someone like that, if I'm doing a 3-way call with a prospect, one of the things that I ask on that call is I'll say, "Hey Joe, did John got you on the phone and you watched the video, right?" And he goes, "Yes." And I say, "Joe, I just want to ask you, can you do what John has done?" And every time they say yes, because all John did was send him to watch a video and then get him on the phone with another leader. And so I say, "Can you do those 2 things? Can you get people to watch a video and then get them on a phone with a leader?" And every time they go yes, and I go, "Great," because that's all we have to do to build this business. That's all we're doing. And this is a way to create huge residual income. So it just shows the prospect that they can actually do the business. And that's you always want to be following the system to build your team.
That's phenomenal, Steve. So really, the 3 points there are: use the tools, and we've got the tools that people can use. And the point there is that however we show the prospect of business, that's what they're going to think they need to do as well. So we need to keep it simple, and we can keep it simple by using those tools. And then the third item that you mentioned, these 3-way calls. I've heard people say if there's a silver bullet, and there isn't a silver bullet in anything, but if there's a silver bullet in our business, it's that third-party credibility and these 3-way calls. And that's brilliant. Now, just real quick thing for folks on the webinar here tonight. Guys, I don't know if you've got paper and a pen. I hope you do, and I hope you're taken some notes. Really, really important that you were able to come back to what you're listening to here tonight, having written it down after you've heard it, be able to have this stuff sit in your mind so that the old subconscious can be thinking about it when you're not later on when you're sleeping tonight, because this stuff is, these are the secrets here, I guess, if you want to call them that, and they're not so secret really at all, to success. So, Steve, that's brilliant stuff. On following the system, you know, and then jumping over into taking immediate action, can you talk about the sense of urgency that is so important in taking immediate action, Steve? That would be great.
Well, I think the best way to look at it, John, is when I have a new associate. You know, one of the first things that I like to do with that new associate is sit down with them and you know, train them on how to get started with the company. You know, but one of the first things I ask them is, do you want to have a good story or a great story? And again, every single time they go, I want to have a great story. And I say, okay, then we need to get you off to a great start, because you need to understand that everything you do right now, you're starting a business, and everything that you do right now is your story. So this is the story. What you do in the first 6 months, what you do in the first year, you know, that for the rest of your business is going to be your story. And so let's make that a great story, because how great would it be if from this point forward, everyone that you talk to about the business, you say, hey, I got in the business, and in my first month, you know, I made you know, over $1,000 in my first month. I mean, isn't that a great story? And they say yes, and I say, okay, well then let's make that happen. Let's get focused and get you off to a great start, so that you'll have a great story to tell for the rest of your career. And so it kind of helps get that new associate going, yeah, okay, I get it. And so they understand the importance of getting off to a great start. And getting off to a great start requires you to take massive immediate action. And so I try and get in their head a little bit, encourage them to cut out some other things. You know, this is, you know, really it's just setting the stage for how important this is. And so, you know, what are some things that we can cut out that, you know, like I said earlier, that may not be as important right now? You know, yeah, like for me, I love golf. And I'm not going to tell somebody that loves golf, hey, you got to give up golf. You know, you got to quit playing golf. No, I'm not saying that. But can you quit playing golf for a couple of weeks? Yes. And so that's the point, is just trying to get them to really focus in the beginning, and let's figure out what's important, what's not important, and maybe take a few things off the table for a couple of weeks, and let's really get focused, and let's really get your business off to a great start by taking this massive immediate action. And so, you know, that action is going to be, you know, making a contact list. And you know, let's get that contact list built out. You know, I say let's get at least 100 names on there. And some people balk at that and go, oh, geez, I don't know 100 people. And I always say, yes, you do. You know 100 people. We just got to pull them out of your brain. And so what I want them to do is write down on a piece of paper everyone that they can think of off the top of their head. Let's start writing. Let's start getting in. Do not edit that list. Don't think of somebody and say, well, I'm not going to put them on the list because they, you know, they're already, you know, hugely successful. They wouldn't be interested, or this or that. You know, I just say don't edit the list. Let's just, if the name comes to the mind, let's put it on the paper and let's build this list out. And then if they, you know, once they get to a point where they can't think of anyone else, we start using memory joggers to help jog their memory of people that they know. And we've got some of those in the Freedom Plan, you know, so we help jog their memory and help build out that list. And then we want to qualify that list by going through that list and putting check marks next to their name if they have credibility and influence. You know, that's the people I want to go after. If they have If they're success-minded and positive, put a check mark next to their name. If they're entrepreneurial and their business, you know, they like to make money, put a check mark next to their name. And then last but not least, if they have $375, put a check mark next to their name. And all of these are important. So once I get them to qualify their list, then I say, okay, everyone on your list that has 4 check marks next to their name, we're going to call them, and we want to call them first. Because here's the thing, remember, I want my new associate to get off to a great start. And so I don't want him to start, or her, to start with broke Uncle Harry, you know, that's negative, and you know, I'm going to end up taking my new associate over to broke Uncle Harry, and broke Uncle Harry's going to tell her why this won't work and why she's going to look stupid and why, you know, all the negative stuff. I don't want my new associate to start there. Okay, so that's why we qualify the list, so that we can start the new associate off with the people that have 4 check marks to their name. Because here's what we found: the people that have 4 check marks next to their name, they're the ones that see it faster than anyone. They get it. They like to make money. They've already got all the right stuff. And so I want to start there and have my new associate start off with a bang. And guess what? People with 4 check marks next to their name usually know lots of other people that have 4 check marks next to their name, right? So it leads to the proper direction. It leads to that growth because they're dealing with right people. And so we just want to start picking up that phone and setting appointments with those right people. And if you're with the person, you know, in other words, if you're building in your backyard and you live in the same area as them, you may want to go with them on these appointments, you know, and I encourage that. I say, hey, you know, if I've got a new associate that's in my backyard and we've got their list qualified and they're starting to call and make appointments, I say, hey, let me go with you. Let's go meet some people, you know, and let's go show the plan. Let's go get them in front of the information, and I'll go with you, and we'll help get your team going. And if it's a person that's not in my backyard, like for instance, if I'm here in Texas and I've got a new associate that's in all the way up in Pennsylvania or wherever, then I'll do webinars with them. You know, I'll get them on a private webinar and say, hey, set some appointments. Let's get some people in front of the information, or I'll have them watch the video online and set up a 3-way call with them. Whatever, but I'm there to help support those new people to get them started, because we want to get them off to a great start.
That's phenomenal, Steve. And you know, I jotted down a bunch of stuff here, and you would use the words, you know, right people. And I remember just recently down at Ignition, which was just, man, that was just phenomenal. Got to hear you talk for a few minutes as we kind of kick things off there, you know, on our big day on Saturday. And you had said you were saying the same thing. You were talking about the same thing, and you know, when you really just kind of boil things down to it here, and that's all we're trying to do in these sessions, and in what we're talking about specifically right now. These right people are these people where we have those 4 tick marks next to their names, and the fact that what we're trying to just do here is ensure, like you said, that people get off to a great start. So this is just awesome information, man. You know, it's really the obvious stuff that sometimes we just kind of blow off because it doesn't seem like it's that critical. But you guys wouldn't have taken the time to put it in the Freedom Plan, and we certainly wouldn't be talking about it right now if it wasn't going to be something that was going to make you successful. So this is great stuff. You know, Steve, in thinking, I think you know, I think I had this mindset when I first got started. I did everything wrong. I mean, I'm the poster child for, you know, being an island to himself and not listening to anybody. I mean, I quit and then got started back up again because I was so frustrated. I wondered why I was frustrated. It's because I didn't follow the system. I didn't take immediate action. And I certainly wasn't thinking long term. I just had this, I think, maybe mindset, and it wasn't anything anyone told me that, oh, geez, you know, this probably should just happen overnight. And I didn't. I've been playing the drums for almost all my life, and I didn't equate it to the time I had to put in the woodshed to be able to learn a technique, which took a long time sometimes, or trying to get fit or lose weight, that it didn't happen overnight. So
Right.
can you talk a little bit, Steve, about sort of the mindset of your long-term thinking, when we're talking about this business and what that means?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, it's that's part of what I do in that initial meeting with a new associate as well, is talk about this long-term mindset that we're building residual income here. And here's the difference. This is, I want them to understand the value of building residual income. And I kind of go through, what I put in my book in Residual Millionaire, where I just explain to them that, do you realize that in order to create a residual income of $2,500 a month, by investing, go to your banker and ask how much you would have to put in the bank to create that kind of residual income. That's at 3% interest. That's $1 million in the bank to create $2,500 a month. I tell them I can show you how to do that. With Stream, we can create a passive residual income, and it's a lot easier to do that than to get $1 million in the bank. And so I want them to understand this path that we're on, and it's very important that they understand that it's worth it, because this is not an easy business. This is a tough business, and there's ups, there's downs, there's going to be good times and bad times, but as long as you understand where you're going, you've set that ultimate goal that you want to accomplish with your business. That's what enables you to overcome all the inevitable obstacles that are going to get in your way. And so it's very important that associates set that long-term goal and understand what they're ultimately trying to accomplish with their Stream business, so that they know where they're going. And another thing that does, I teach that, people that know where they're going, people tend to follow those people, right?
Yeah.
Those are leaders, and so leaders know where they're going, and that's what people are looking for. When you know where you're going, then people want to follow someone that knows where they're going. I mean, have you ever noticed that people don't follow someone that doesn't know where they're going? And so you've got to establish that, because it does something psychologically to you, where you have this confidence, this drive, this air about you, and it actually creates a fear of loss in the people that you talk to. Because when you know where you're going and you have that confidence and you have that drive, then it creates this fear of loss in everyone around you, because they go, wow, I think he's going to do it, and if I don't do it with him, I'm going to miss out, right? And that's kind of what you want, is you've got to have that long-term perspective, so that you don't quit on every little problem that comes up. And that's what you see the masses do, John. I think that people don't set, they don't have that long-term perspective, and so every time a little problem arises, then they just choose to quit, because they're not focused on what they're wanting to ultimately do.
I think we see that, unfortunately, I think, Steve, all too often. It kind of ties into, that idea of the couple points here I want to just circle back to for a second. The last point that you made, about people that sort of just, give up before they even really start. It talks about sort of the fifth point here, and we'll get to it in a minute, about, some expectation setting and whatnot. All these things tie together. That point that you made about fear of loss, or that posture that you have as the leader, the person that knows where they're going and what they're going to do. I would imagine, for yourself, in knowing your story and how you described it earlier, and that your back was against the wall. It wasn't that you were desperate, although maybe underneath everything, it was this, like, I have to make this work. This has to work for me. But your your commitment to saying, you know what, this is going to work for me, is probably at least one of the things that shined through when you met with people and they said, oh my God, this guy, I mean, the sense that they got was like, this guy is going to get this done. I mean, he's you could tell he's focused like a laser beam, and I want in just because he knows what he's doing. So
Absolutely.
That's a huge point.
Absolutely, and I think it's in how you talk to people. And you know, my sister is a perfect example. You know, when I met with my sister, we hadn't even launched the company yet. But I told my sister, I said, Susan, I'm going to make a ton of money with this company, and you can watch me or you can join me. And I said, I would rather you join me. But you know, that immediately sent a message to my sister that I was serious, and it again created a fear of loss in her that if she didn't join me on this, she was going to regret it. And thankfully, she chose the right way, right? You know, she was like, okay, I got to do this, you know. But that's how you talk to people. I mean, you've got to, and it's confidence, John, and it's different than arrogance. You know, it's not arrogance.
Amen.
It's just confidence in what you're doing and what you're going to accomplish and where you're going, and even taking it as far as telling them that you can help them as well. I mean, they've got to see you as an asset for them, and you know, that's that thing of answering the question, what's in it for me? You know, you've always got to answer the question of what's in it for me for your prospect, so that, you know, you're letting them know, hey, here's what I can do for you. You partner with me, and you know, you get to leverage me. You get to leverage my time. You get to leverage my knowledge. You get to leverage my experience. You get to leverage my passion, and together, if you'll put me in front of people, together we're going to knock this out of the park. And this is exactly how I talk to prospects. And so
what, yeah,
I'm giving them.
How would anybody? You know, what do they say, Steve? You know, where people come from miles to watch somebody burn. And I think that's exactly what you have going on when you've got that sort of, again, not arrogance. That's a completely different characteristic than confidence.
Yeah, and it's about them. I mean, you're making it about them, but you know what I'm giving them is an irresistible offer.
Right. It's phenomenal.
That's where if you present it in that way, then they're almost crazy not to take it, because you've given them an irresistible offer to be able to join with you, because you're going to take them to the promised land. And that's the message.
Awesome. Now, I'd say if I were posting something on Facebook and replying, I would say awesome sauce. That's phenomenal. All right, man. Awesome. So, you know, thinking long term, and then I think something that helps folks stay in the game, even again, we talked about how people kind of, because maybe they don't have realistic expectations, or they're easily discouraged. They don't have a big enough why, for a number of different reasons, and probably you know, there's no one thing, but it's just a number of things. Getting involved and being involved, how does that factor into, you know, something that someone that makes a commitment to this does? What does that mean for folks that you're talking to on your team and what you're teaching, you know, that new person or somebody that's in your organization, wherever they are, Steve? What does that mean to you guys?
Say that again to me, John.
So getting involved and being involved.
Okay. Yeah. You know, it's so important, because what I like them to see is the culture of the company, and they start building relationships with other people, maybe on your team and on other teams, and they may they may relate better to a different leader, and so they start seeing other people and finding other people that they can relate with. I encourage them to start building some accountability relationships with people that are in the same situation that they are in the business, or whatever, and start building these accountability partnerships so that they are running with like-minded people. I think that's very important, so that they're not in it by themselves. And I think as they get plugged into the different events, they start seeing that we really have a family here with Stream, and it's just a lot of fun. And I was at a generic network marketing event this past weekend, and it was really good, and you see different companies there, and I was just talking to someone about this up at corporate today, and just how different our company is, and yes, we're a network marketing company, but the way our company does things is professional in the industry, and I like that. I mean, I think we draw, because of that, we draw a lot of professionals to the business, but they start to see that. They start to see the culture of the company, and get hooked in with lots of other people, and you start having it becomes more than just making money, and that's very important, because we're all, I think all of us would probably say we got involved and we're here to make money because it's a business, but I think there's much more to Stream than just making money, and there's a lot of relationships here, and that's important. At the end of the day, I mean, this is kind of a different way of looking at it, but when you're dying, if you're on your deathbed, you don't want to be surrounded by your money, right?
No doubt about it.
I mean, so you got to look at it that way. You got to start realizing that life is more than just making money. I mean, if you're on your deathbed, you want to be surrounded by your friends and your family, and then your loved ones, and so I think it's important to keep that perspective and get people plugged into events, but get people plugged into relationships.
I think that it speaks volumes. I mean, for really what can kind of keep you going, I think, too, in this, and it is those relationships. It's the friendships that you make with the folks that are in this business. And you, Steve, I'm a professional IT guy, and in that I work with a lot of different people all the time, sort of on the front line, and that sort of a business. But really, not much of a aside from my involvement in Stream here. My network marketing years are the 3 years I've been with Stream, and so I don't have a lot to compare it against or to. But I know for a fact that the quality of the people that we get to be around in this business is nothing like I've ever experienced in my life. I've worked for a lot of different companies. I've consulted for a lot of different companies, and there's just nothing that compares to what we have in this business. And by being able to attend events like a Stream University or Ignition or weekly meeting that we have, it's amazing, the quality of people and how that sort of connectivity that you have with them in these relationships, just kind of keeps you going. I mean, you've got somebody else that you're kind of accountable with, and hey, we're doing this together, right? We may not even be financially connected with one another, and that's the most beautiful thing, I think, of all, where there's this camaraderie and sort of fellowship just in that alone, and you just want to help and see other people succeed, regardless of what the case is. So that's huge. I think that's huge for people.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, and I think as people see that, we've got something special here. We really do, and you don't have to look very far and look at too many different things out there to realize that we do have something special here with our team. Not only the corporate team, but the field leadership team and all the people involved.
I couldn't agree with you more. It's just a great group of people, wonderful experience. Kind of coming down towards the end of our list, at least here anyway, Steve, and we've got realistic expectations. I think that oftentimes, oftentimes there can be this idea that people have in their head, when they get started, with Stream in this business that, for whatever reason, we got to dream big, and that's really, really important. But we also have to be realistic about, what we can accomplish in a day versus what we can get done in a year by doing little things every day. You started to talk about this a little bit when we talked about thinking long term. What do you do with your team, Steve, and how do you coach others in terms of realistic expectations?
Well, I like to kind of relate it to investing, and if anyone's ever done any investing, if you start out investing $100 a month, you can do that for 5 or 6 months, and you're not really making any money on that. You're going to be, if you start evaluating that after 4 or 5 months, you're going to be really disappointed. And if you look at the returns that you're getting on $500 or $600, you're going to be going, well, man, this is not even worth my effort. Not even worth my time. But that's not why you invest, and that's you have to have that realistic expectation, and you have to understand how the process works. That after you get it to a certain point, then your money begins to compound and start making you more and more and more, and over time you get to the point where you start making more than what you're putting in, right? And so it's that long-term effect of investing and knowing that if I keep doing this over an extended period of time, this is what my end result is going to be, And so it's really the same in our business. It's just having that realistic expectation that in the beginning of the business, I like to tell my new associate, I say, this is going to be really hard. This is going to be hard, but again, I established that it's going to be worth it. And so I want them to have that understanding. I don't want to paint a picture to my new associate and make them think that, that they're going to be making $5,000 next month. Because if I do that, then what's going to happen? Next month they're not making $5,000 and they feel like I cheated them or I didn't give them the whole truth. I want to really paint the picture of what we're going to build here and what we're going to do, and I like to get a 2-year commitment from them, and say, hey, give me 2 years because I'm going to be pouring into you, and so if I'm going to be pouring into you and giving you my time, which is very valuable to me, then I need to know you're going to be here with me, and you're looking at this in the right way with giving it at least 2 years of effort. And that kind of gets them on the right page. Okay, well, we're going to build a business here, and so it's important for them to understand that there's going to be ups and downs. I sometimes I don't know if you've seen me do this before. I've done it in front of crowds before, where I talk about how this is really like pushing a steel ball up a mountain, And if you're pushing a big steel ball up a mountain by yourself, it doesn't take very long for you to realize, wow, this is really, really hard, and you may have to turn around and take a break and get your breath and start over again, pushing the ball. But you'll realize that you can't push the steel ball by yourself. You're going to have some help. And that's where a team comes in, where you gotta get 3 of your friends, to come help you start pushing this ball, and then, now that you've got, some people helping you, you start moving up that mountain a little faster, because now you got 4 people pushing, right? And even with 4 people, it doesn't go very fast, and you're going to get tired, and at some point you're going to have to look at the other people and go, hey, we need some more people to push this steel ball up this mountain, and you're encouraging them to go get some more people to help push this ball, and there may be a point, they go get, and let's say you got 12 people on your team, and now you're really starting to push that ball faster, and things are moving, and it's easier because you got more people, helping, and they may ask you, now, why are we pushing the steel ball up this mountain? And so you just explain to them, well, when we get this steel ball up to the top of the mountain and it rolls off the other side, we make millions of dollars. and then they begin to understand, oh, okay, so let's go get lots more people so we can get this thing over the top of the mountain. And that's really the picture I try and give my new associate, that, this is what it's going to be like in the beginning. You're pushing this steel ball by yourself. But as you build a team, if you get a team of people helping you push that steel ball, and it starts moving faster and it gets easier for you. The more people you have on your team, the easier it gets. And when you get that ball to roll over on the other side of the mountain and it picks up momentum that you can't stop, then there's millions of dollars to be made. But it takes time to get it there.
That's a great illustration, Steve, and it paints a great picture, and you can kind of just see that happening as well. You know what I mean? If you just kind of picture that, I know I can in my mind, where there you are and you're kind of shoving behind that ball and you're kind of doing it on your own, and you just kind of trying to climb a pump, I guess, to get water to the surface. You got to work your tail off to get that to happen, and after it starts to flow, if you just kind of, you don't have to put as much into what you were doing to get things pumping, but that idea that, listen, this is going to be hard, right? And you've got to stay committed to this over the long haul to see the results. If you don't, you're not going to get to the tip of that mountain, be able to push that ball down, and then be able to benefit from the hard work and the effort that you put in. And starting and stopping has sort of that same effect, right? You're kind of right back to square one again.
Right. And again, I just want them to, as far as realistic expectations, I want them to understand that residual income is worth the fight, because that gives you true freedom. We all probably know someone that has lots of money that's absolutely miserable, right? And we may know others that have lots of time but don't have any money. Right. And I always say, it's best if you can have time freedom and financial freedom, so that you have the time and the money to enjoy it, right? Because that gives you true freedom, and that's what residual income does. So I really try and paint that picture for them, that, hey, we're building something here that if you'll build this, it can give you the life that you want, whatever that is. And that may be different for all of us, but just imagine, we even start our business presentation off with this, and I always ask, what we ask, what does freedom look like to you? And I say, I take it a step further and say, if you had all the time and all the money that you needed, what would your life look like? And see, that's a great question to ask, because it gets people dreaming again. And if you had all the time and all the money that you needed, what would you do with your life? What would you be doing? And so that's their why, right? That's really what they're passionate about. That's what they were put on this earth to do. And I just use Stream as a way to show them, hey, we can do that. We can make that happen if you'll stick with me for the long term.
Unbelievable, and it's so true, so absolutely true. I can't believe I'm cognizant of the time here, Steve, and we could. I'm very, very cognizant of your time as well and how precious it is, and everyone's also. We got about 20 after 10 here, and I feel like we could probably go on for hours. And you could on any one of these topics. But I do want to be cognizant of your time and everyone else's as well. What I'd like to do here, I guess, if I could, is just ask you to share with folks anything that you might have in closing that's on your mind with regard to where we're at with Stream and our business. A vision that you've got for how you see the future and how things are shaping up, or whatever is really on your mind with respect to where we are in this place and time right now.
Well, I think we're in a great place, John. I think we've been through a huge transitional phase with the company, and obviously transition is tough. I mean, it is not an easy place to be, and sometimes not a fun place to be. But it was a necessary transition that we've gone through to where our company has totally rebranded and rolled out a new compensation plan and rolled out a new product offering in wireless that opened us up nationwide. And I think with all the changes that took place with our company, it kind of threw some people off, and people started thinking, our company's changing, and I think some people kind of lost sight of, that we are still in the energy business, and I want to make clear, that's our core product. I mean, that's what made us who we are. And I was talking with Pierre Koshakji today, who's one of the founders and owners of the company, and I said, I think some people looked at our wireless rollout as a change instead of an addition, and it was like I think some people thought we were changing from an energy company to a wireless company, rather than realizing, no, we're just adding wireless to our portfolio, and so I want to really kind of circle back with people and make everyone realize that, hey, what we're doing here, the company that Bouncer is building is a service-based company that we've established that we do not want to offer products. Okay, so we're not, and I'm not knocking products, but we're not a product-based company. We're a service-based company, and we want to own the home, and I love that. I love that we're service-based, because I quite frankly don't want to do products, right? I like the service-based business because to me it's the best in network marketing. And so, we want to get to the point where we have multiple services in the home that we're able to offer as we go nationwide, to where, nationwide people will be able to choose, multiple products through Stream. And I see one day us bundling those together and creating more value for our customers. But as we launch this mobile, there's been a few things that we've learned, and there's been some hiccups and all that. But I think things are getting much better every day. I was actually in the corporate offices today and got to meet with Bouncer Shiro and Pierre Koshakji and some of the wireless team leaders, and they really are getting better every day. And we're in a place now, we just really got to get everybody focused on making it happen, and let's get out there and get people in front of the information, to where they get that confidence that, hey, we can do this. And as you build in the 6 states that we've been in, be sure we have the opportunity. I mean, if you think about it, in the 6 states that we've been doing business in, we can, get them signed up for energy, protective services, and wireless, and really, create significant residual income with that. I mean, it's really powerful, guys, how much residual income is on the table, and Bouncer didn't want us to. We actually had to tone down our presentation as far as residual is concerned. because we couldn't show how much was really there because it's just too much. I mean, we would look crazy if we put all that on in the business presentation. So you got to realize there's a lot of money on the table with our compensation plan, not only with the promotions that we have this month, but with the long-term residual that's there. It's crazy how much money you can make if you just go build it. And I think that's the most important thing for everyone to understand tonight is you got to put your head down and you got to go to work. And you got to start building. You got to start building your team. And you know, whether it's in the 6 states that we've been in, or whether you're building in other states, which is great. I loved Ignition. I thought Ignition went just awesome, and we had people at Ignition from all over the country. It was pretty amazing. So we're starting to see that happen where teams are growing in other states and leaders are starting to pop up in other states. And you know, I said this at Ignition, John, but this is a fear of loss that I have, that you know, this is going to happen without me. All of a sudden you're going to have leaders. I mean, you know, we recognized an ED, an executive director at Ignition from Tennessee, right?
Amazing. Yep.
Yeah, it's already happening. So these leaders are popping up in these other states. And so the main thing you have to understand is this is going to happen with or without any of us on this webinar tonight. And so I just choose to get out there and be a part of it. You know, I want to have some of those leaders on my team. I don't want it to happen without me.
It's exactly. I think that's exactly my sentiment, Steve, as well. We're out there really to win this, and it's that same idea, that sort of that fear of loss. So that's an awesome message. Well, listen, I've got about 7 pages of notes here from the time we started talking early on. I think the great news for folks is that this is recorded, and it'll be available to them again, because I think that there were a few questions that came in while we were talking, Steve, and what I just want to tell folks is that, hey, if you missed something or you wanted something repeated, don't worry about it. We're going to post this, and you'll be able to go back and get to that specific spot in this and be able to listen again. Steve, I can't thank you enough for taking the time, a lot of time, out of your evening to spend with us here tonight. I really appreciate it. I know that folks benefited from what you had to say here. So thanks, man. I don't know what to say.
Absolutely, man. I enjoyed it. I'm glad everybody got on with us, and let's go get them. That's what I say, John, and I appreciate you doing these. These are awesome. So anytime you need me, just let me know.
Oh, you bet, man. Absolutely. I'd love to have you back. That'd be fantastic. We'll get you somewhere in the rotation here, Steve, talking about, you know, a different aspect of the Freedom Plan. You know, one of the other 3 sessions that we do at some point in time. I'd love that, and I know people would as well. And I'll just close out here by saying that, you know, next week we'll be at it again on Thursday night at 9:30. I'm going to just kind of jump down, if I can, to the end of my slide here. I have a couple of notes about our guest for next week, and I just wanted to make sure people were aware of things that are coming up here, some events that are coming up. So not Jason Baez, not just yet anyway. So there we are. Fundamentals, Part 3 next week. We've got an executive director, Ray Bickerstaff, is going to be with us. So that should be great, guys. We're going to talk about knowing your why, goal setting, and dream building. One of my favorite sessions to be on. You know, obviously, guys, make sure that you're aware of the events that are upcoming. You know, we've got a Stream University that's going to be down in Houston, and then over in Georgia as well. You know, look for all those details in the Power Center. Folks are getting up, like myself, for a senior director's cruise coming up in just a couple weeks here. I cannot wait to be on that cruise ship. And Super Saturday coming at us August 1st. Details will be forthcoming. And then, of course, you know, in October, we've got Connect. And all the details you'll be able to find in the Power Center. So, Steve, man, thank you so much again. And thank you, everybody, for taking time out of your night to be here with us.
Absolutely, man. Thanks a lot, John.
Take care. Have a good night, Steve. Thank you.